Hello, welcome or welcome back. This is the Daily Dharma Part 3 today. And my name is Deana with Impressive Warrior. Thank you so much for joining. So today I have been called to do a bit of a different reading. The first one I was told to start out with Tao Te Ching deck rather than the Sacred Geometry Activations Oracle deck like usual. And I was getting some chakra activation cards. So I'm feeling that we're all going through a similar upgrade, but that it's happening through different aspects of the self. And I'll take that one for our message on this one. So all three are a little bit different message, but perhaps may all pertain to you or someone close to you. But yeah, let's see what comes out on this one. 37 popped out. The Tao never does anything, yet through it all things are done. If powerful men and women could center themselves in it, the whole world would be transformed by itself, in its natural rhythms. People would be content with their simple, everyday lives, in harmony and free of desire. When there is no desire, all things are at peace. And one of the things that I'm feeling with this card is peace is great, and non-desire is easily one of the most misunderstood aspects of, let's say, the New Age movement, where Buddhism says that desire is suffering. But what is desire? Desire is the impulse of wanting something. And what are we here to do if not to be curious and to expand our curiosity and our awareness through exploration and through finding something just fascinating or delicious or something, right? 222 on the timer there. So if there's no desire, all things are at peace. So sometimes peace can seem quite boring, and we may want something that is putting us in a little bit of a push-pull or a acceleration braking, like go, stop, red light, green light type of a situation, mixed messages here. Because if we could center ourselves in our peace, we would want for nothing. We could live in a hut and be at peace with the universe. We would have all kinds of messages from the divine, and we would understand and know and be transformed. The whole world would be transformed. And I'm having a lot of pain in my stomach randomly all of a sudden, and it feels weird. But in the human dimension, it's almost like we're here to be wanty and to experience our wanting nature, our desire nature, our neediness, and to, in our witnessing of it, to understand what things really matter, what things we need to take care of. We need to hydrate. We need to fuel the body, unless somebody here thinks that they can be a breatharian. But I believe that the futuristic human, in the proper training and situation, could be at complete peace and stay meditating for days on end, fasting and unaffected, perhaps. But the average person is not at that place and still has a lot of desire that may be being repressed or denied or compromised. Difference of desire. Let's see what else. The generals have a saying, rather than make the first move, it's better to wait and see. Rather than advance an inch, it's better to retreat a yard. Yeah, magnetism. I forgot to talk about magnetism with that card. I did have Divine Masculine and why was I thinking of magnetism? I'll think of it. I'll think of it. It was whatever card it was in the code cards in the pre-shuffle. There was something about the masculine, and which is the desire, the urge, the impulse, and the yang action concept. And better than advancing an inch is to retreat a yard. It's like when you really want something, that desire nature, sometimes you really have to give it more space to then, and I'm not talking about playing games, to use magnetism in a way. So I will reveal, it will sound a bit like a game, but in relationships, there are those of us who are doers and who want to be direct and proactive, and when we get an impulse or an intuitive inkling or a desire, we might, let's say in a relationship, the more proactive person might reach out and be like, hey, what are you doing? You want to hang out? Or we'll just phone call the person, right? A real phone call, not a text or anything, right? And in masculine feminine, it sounds a lot like role playing, but honestly, there's a balance within all of us between recognizing the desire and creating creating magnetism. I want to say the allure, the lure, the bait that has somebody come back. So in a relationship with myself being a female and pursuing a male, even if I am going to make some type of a first move, I will do it in a specific way that demands that the other needs to take a step into the center, to meet me in the center. I will not go all the way and cross that center line, the fulcrum of balance, and say, oh, well, hey, do you want to go out? I'm doing this and this and this, and I thought you could just, like, I could pick you up and blah, blah, blah. You know, as the female, I don't want to usurp the male's man card right up front, because then you set the precedence of being an unequal partnership. I'll leave it at that. And on the flip side of that, you don't want to always make them do all the calling and miss their calls and not call them back either, because when someone else is putting out some effort and you do desire, it's good to return the call, right? But when we're seeing this, it's better to retreat a yard. There was a situation where I had a friend the other day, and we were talking about the ways that we argue. And this is good for everybody, right? There are those of us who really want to get our point across. We feel like we haven't expressed it, and we want to approach it 10 different ways and explain to the other why we and our perspective is justified and makes total sense, and why what you did probably wasn't the best, and that we have this idea and blah, 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 that. And so in relationships, this can escalate into people who have old habit patterns and old conflict resolution coping mechanisms, where they can't let a thing go, and they want to pursue you and be like, well, why? Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. And this other person is like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. The complementary energy to somebody who is aggressively pursuing and questioning and interrogating, the other person's natural response is to retreat a mile rather than to come in and answer. And in the same way, if you are the person who says, every time I try to have a conversation about, let's say, commitment with this non-committal love target, then I keep asking, they never come back, and then I don't hear from them. Well, better than to advance and interrogate is to, in an argument, let's say, that's the easier situation to describe. instead of interrogating, let that person have the time and the space, because some people are triggered by aggressive people coming in, most of us, right? Being chased. We can't hear, we can't think, we're in the moment of fight or flight or freeze or what's the other one? Feign or bargaining type of a thing. Falter, it's one of those. Anyways, there's this element of looking at the way we argue with kids, spouses, family members. You know, are you the one that's like the dog with the bone, or are you somebody who needs to run away and gain perspective through listening to yourself and letting your mind clear for a minute? And in relationships otherwise too, I said to this person in the same conversation, we were discussing argument styles and how to self-check ourselves. So don't follow the person down the hall. They're walking away from you and you're feeling like they're abandoning you, but all they're doing is getting away from a bully. I mean, face it, right? Not that you're a bully, but in their mind, in the moment, they're triggered by your aggression. And the only way to create some middle ground is to retreat and to give them space. And in attraction, I said to her, I witnessed my love interest walking over towards his car before he was leaving. I said, I wonder if he wants me to follow him over there. I said, I'm sure he would just be pleased as punch if I just ran up to him and was like, oh, goodbye, I'll miss you. And I said, the bigger my desire and my impulse to go and to chase and to, like, essentially kind of throw yourself into the moment, which is fun and cute in the movies, but to then witness that desire and say, but I know he also wants that. And so I'm going to sit here looking very cute, and I'm going to sit back in my little chair, and he's going to come right to me. And he did, because mutually we wanted middle ground. We wanted understanding. We wanted more bonding. We're moving towards each other in situation. So instead of creating unequal, perhaps runner-chaser dynamic might be what we're talking about for some of you, it's sometimes better to just really retreat and say, why is my desire to overwhelm or to capture, or it's like, precious, right? And so to then say, okay, I'm safe and secure. There's nothing that I'm going to lose out on. I will not be abandoned or cast away or rejected if I am always here for myself in my center, in my sovereign aligned core. That is where I am most magnetic. That is where I'm in my beingness. And so even though in that moment there is nothing being done, everything is done because things come to you. So powerful men and women, if they can center themselves in their sovereignty and in their magnetism, then the whole world is transformed through themselves, because the natural rhythms can come and operate in that way, because we're allowing the universe to flow around us and to fill in the low and the high spots around us. And then we're free of desire, because we know that what's meant for us and what's also moving towards us mutually will come into the center with us. So 69 again. The generals have a saying, rather than make the first move, it's better to wait and see. Rather than advance an inch, it is better to retreat a yard. This is called going forward without advancing, pushing back without using weapons. There's no greater misfortune than underestimating your enemy. Underestimating your enemy means thinking that he's evil. Thus you destroy your three treasures and become an enemy yourself. When two great forces oppose each other, the victory will go to the one who knows how to yield. Interesting. So we are possibly talking about conflict. So yeah, how do you deal with conflict in your own life? How do you deal with restrictions in your life or limitations? Like, oh, you had planned on going on a vacation, it was all planned in advance, you never work weekends, but now there's suddenly this mandatory overtime, right? So knowing how to yield, maybe it's a landscaping job and you get rain and you can't actually work and you still don't have to take the time off. Or maybe the whole thing ends up not going off anyways, and so you're at work, you're making money, and nobody went anyway, so it's no big loss. But it's something about, instead of creating mountains out of molehills or fighting against the things that are coming, taking that step back and saying, okay, so either this is something that I'm being redirected by the universe because there's a blessing in it, or because I'm supposed to recognize that this is limiting me beyond my comfort level, and now I'm getting the impulse to move in a different direction. So there's something here, powerful men and women going forward without advancing, pushing back without using weapons. So pushing back with perhaps compassion and saying, you know, I have a lot on my mind that I want to say, but I want to say it in the correct context. And I don't want to yell. I don't want to say anything that I don't really mean. So allow me to take the night and to sleep on an argument before we get into something and make it about something that it isn't about. Or let's ask questions instead of making assumptions. Or you know, saying, I really want to argue this out, but I know that these things, you can't talk them out with me in the moment. I'll give you your space for a little while. I need to go and be busy so that I'm not going to harp on you or stare at you and give you the stink eye from the corner, right? Go be busy with soul time. Yeah, the compassion coming through. And when in conflict, don't fall into demonizing the enemy, because everybody ultimately does want compromise in some type of a way, but they see compromise differently than you. They're overestimating their own benefits, underestimating your own, perhaps. These are natural inclinations. And so instead of accusing, there's some type of a way to use compassion instead of the weapons. And the tongue can definitely be a weapon, and so can our thoughts. So what are we giving our power away to? Our anger. And there's another situation too that's so prominent in this energy. Another situation where an individual was telling me that their ex, their child's parent, that they were no longer with, and there was tension and lack of communication breakdown, different forms of manipulation and abuse in this certain situation. They wanted their ex to call and cancel an appointment for the child, and they harped and called and texted and demanded this ex call to do this. And instead of empowering themselves to go and cancel the appointment with one phone call, they took it day after day, conversation after conversation, demonizing this ex for something they could have made one phone call and had it done. But instead, they've wasted days and weeks, a month, I don't know how long, being angry and betrayed, and saving this up, using it for scorekeeping, using it for down the road. Like, they entrapped this other individual in something that they knew they wouldn't be responsive for, and making demands on somebody that they don't have control over, not witnessing their power or control over the situation to just fix it like that. became obsessive with their enemy. And so they've blocked their blessings for however long they stayed in that energy, instead of empowering themselves to just move on. And it looks just as bad on that person to not engage with everything, whether they did or didn't. Just let them be. Focus on you. The frequency of empowerment supports our ability to show up fully and completely, uniting us with others in the deep trust that we are all connected through the same source. So this person may want more compromise and may be seen as toxic and manipulative, but that's where they're at. In knowing this, do you want to engage with toxicity? Because then it'll be in your energy. And then you're adopting and inviting toxicity in your life. Or in witnessing and allowing that person to act in their own benefit or demise, you are strengthening your case, whether it's a real court case or not. You're strengthening your case because you are the one that has been doing it and taking initiative. So rather than taking steps to entrap, take steps proactively to make the situation better. Ultimately, in a situation where the child is in the middle, there is definitely one loser, if not all people losing, if they get put in the middle and are not prioritized. Sacral chakra. What are you valuing? Do you see the worth in the situation? Supports our ability to flow with our desires and stimulates our creative power to manifest success and abundance in our lives. Yeah, so using our opportunities wisely to move away from toxicity, boredom, apathy, blame, any of that, and away from longing or desire to, maybe it's like being hooked into an ex's energy too, like don't engage. If you want to be gone with them, if they're toxic and abusive and manipulative, stop it. Just stop it. And I hate to give advice, but that is overextension and being outside of the center for sure. Compassion. So maybe this person's an addict. Maybe this person is a miserable individual. Have enough compassion for the other people in this situation and for that. Maybe they're a loser in your estimation. Maybe they're the enemy in your situation. Maybe they have taken you to court. But you are strongest when you're inviting in what you value and desire, not that negative intending of rehashing, oh, well, this person did this today, and calling 5 of your friends and family members and talking about how horrible this person is. All you're doing is speaking that misery out into your life. My life is horrible. Look at all of the terrible things happening. Cleanse and clear and strengthen yourself. What's going right? Talk about, talk to your child and with your child, and you know, use your creative ability to support the desires and to manifest success and abundance in your mutual experience. You know, they're overhearing you maybe talk about things like that, overhearing arguments. Yeah, so prosperity. So that's a good reminder, thank you. Moving away from that energy, so I don't want to keep talking about that stank energy either. So moving away from feeling powerless and devalued in a situation, and having that compassion even for the enemy here, which doesn't mean necessarily that they didn't do wrong. It means not holding them responsible for stuff that isn't, I mean, maybe it should be their responsibility, but if it's in our power to take care of it, then the compassion for somebody who's not going to take care of it is like, I'm just going to let them go on their sabbatical. I'm going to let them go down their negative spiral of self-destruction, because I am going to stay in my compassion and let them go on their own journey, and I'm going to keep myself focused on abundance and prosperity in my life. The frequency of compassion supports our ability to stand by others without judgment and to be the divine mediator between heaven and earth, spirit and matter, so that unconditional love can flow from source through our heart and out into the world. So it's when we negatively intend and stay in this stank energy, it affects our ability to be compassionate and to be a beacon of that. People don't want to have you call them and complain. They want to talk about what's right with the world, and then that puts them into the position of, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm sympathetic for you, oh, I wish I could change that, maybe I should give you some type of advice, or oh, well, blah blah blah, you're such a victim. Let's not victimize our friends. Let's say, you are more powerful than that. You don't need to sit there. You can do something about it. And I don't want to sit here and enable you to complain when I can say, why didn't you just take some action? So we have that retreat a yard and non-action over here. So it's like, instead of in that direction, one little done. Back to peace, back to prosperity, back to compassion. One more. Transition. Yeah, about face. It's like maybe you got cut off and somebody's like, oh, I'm so sorry, and I'm going to cut you off faster and faster, the more complaints. And I did check her. I said, why didn't you take over your own situation? So this is probably putting this individual into a position of self-reflection. Prosperity supports our feeling of well-being, allowing the inclusion of everything that makes our body, mind, heart, soul, and spirit sing. It invites us to express ourselves in joy and celebration of the abundance and riches that the universe provides. And if you want to focus on stank energies, there is an abundance of complaints that will come to your attention over and over again. And they'll get more and more fantastic, well rehearsed. And if you rehearse, oh, all women are this, and looking for this type of guy, and all men are players, all women are gold diggers, then that's what you're giving power to. That's what you believe is the worth, and that's where you think that abundance lies. So there's a change and a reflection from being called out in some type of a way that is creating, I think it feels more like a gentle transition, an epiphany of, oh, I'm doing that to myself. I'm making things worse. And they were already bad enough. On the split in the hand, and oh, beautiful. Ego sublimation, the vanishing mirror. Like maybe then you realize, like, oh, I was doing this because I had an ego need to demonize somebody that did put me through the ringer, somebody that I felt disrespected by, that other people may not see in that way. Rehearsing that victimization is not creating the abundance that, and yeah, it's a breakthrough moment in the recognition of how to properly value our energy and how to invest in that joy. Maybe getting around some people that help to inspire you and uplift your spirits, and recognizing how much better it feels to be around those individuals that value you and inspire you, and finding yourself just laughing and not complaining, or having, oh, I forgot to tell you the negative thing that happened today because I was having such fun. Oh, well then let's just stay not talking about those negative things, unless you're going to say, well, I had this weird thing happen to me today, but it had a silver lining where I had this breakthrough moment where I recognized in the moment that I was going that way, and I shifted my energy and I pushed back on that with awareness of my power in the moment. Just say, oh, I'm sorry that happened to you, but you know, I really have to go right now. I hope that you get over that and have a great day for the rest of your day. So take care of yourself. Don't get thinking about that. Do something for you. Go have fun. Go watch a comedy, whatever you want to suggest, you know, putting out there those things, setting that good example. The beloved, radical acceptance coming out again. We've had that quite a bit. So I did already have several coming out. First one, forgiveness, repairing the veil. So repairing the veil, it's like a tear in consciousness, a tear in our psyche or in our heart. It's like the broken heart, the broken mind that is betrayed and scarred, and having this rift that's something that we may have felt in our ego self, that we needed evidence of our esteem, evidence of our respect in some way, and maybe there's been this urge to shove the other individual down, like they tried to bring us down or to weigh us down. And I feel like you're forgiving yourself for having put yourself in that position, for allowing somebody else the power or control to bring you back in, or to tie you up in knots. And I see that you're seeing that it was a choice that you got caught up in, you may have gotten all tied up in, but now there's a way to forgive yourself and to take back your power from that and to repair the delusion of abuse or powerlessness or victimization in the moment. And then we have a couple more that were in the first reading. On the top here, the holy mountain, this moment of soul time, sitting high on the mountain maybe in the past, and then witnessing the struggle that got you here, and having reached the point where, you know, it's not even any fun to blame or to chase somebody down for an argument anymore. Getting to the point where you've forgiven the moment, and you really do realize that it's beyond some people to act in the way that you act. Like for me, I have amazing self-repair and self-coping with healing, and other people don't. So it puts them into a really bitter space, or a betrayed and retaliatory energy, or something of the nature, a jealous or envy energy. And I feel like in the moment, it's like if we're truly to forgive and to resolve something, we have to reach the point that engaging in the toxicity is no longer a viable option. It's no longer something we want to engage in the least. And so in that moment, we are actually stitching our own heart back together, repairing our own delusion that we're suffering, that we have to suffer, that life is suffering. We can transmute suffering into healing and into recognition of our power and our strength. Yeah, that other person, maybe you both got into some drugs and the other person fell off, and you witnessed and cleaned up and got out. Recognizing that makes you stronger, that makes you more resilient, and that person may not be as strong or resilient. Having compassion for their sickness or their toxicity means having the compassion to allow them to fall straight on their face if that needs to happen, and getting yourself to safety and security and staying there, and not allowing yourself to be torn apart again by things that are, it's inconceivable to think that somebody in that mentality would choose differently. And it's lying to ourselves and wasting our energy to engage in that way. Moving out of stagnation. So there's been this dust cloud associated with engaging in this toxic energy, and it's time to, as we stop engaging, as we stop the arguing and the demanding and the criticism and the demonizing and the polarization, like you're the devil, so I'm the angel. If we can recognize how we engage, then the dust begins to settle. The epiphany is made, and the connection is made. The about face is made, where we're like, oh, you're on a downward spiral, and if I engage with you, I'm going to continue to follow you because I continue to want to know what you're doing. Maybe there's people that do that, drive by people's houses. Stop it. Don't look at their social media. Block them so that you don't look at them if that's your problem, because it serves nothing. And once that desert energy is not taking up residence in your energy, that's when you can turn your back to the BS and face the sun again. Face your inspiration and your true, beloved, radical acceptance of where you're at, and to get back into cleaning and tidying up your own energetic field, to take back control of the timing of your life and the timing of your situation, and not like remaining lost in space, hoping and fearing that this person would come back around, you know. And then we've got the initiation. Yeah, this is gathering around with community and like mind. So surround yourself with those that don't want you to talk about your victimization, and that want you to believe in yourself and to talk yourself into that strength moment where it's like, well, I did this, and this for me today, and myself and my family, we had fun today, we did blah, 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 or whatever it is for you. This is where you're aligning with the higher self, the intuition that is streaming. It's almost like zapping you with epiphany after epiphany, and those lightning, shocking situations are helping to repair your awareness of who you are. And I'm going to have to plug in here real quick. Don't mind me shuffling here. I don't want to rush the end of the message. Are we plugged? Are we good? Are we green? Are we green? All right. So yeah, these shocking situations or the shocking stories of the past, you can do something. I've said this in a previous video, the ancestors video. If you are somebody who has dealt with, let's say, manipulation or domestic abuse or control or argumentative back and forth that solves nothing, maybe you are somebody who can benefit from some group counseling or some therapy, or to get involved with different established organizations that assist and help others out from those situations, to help yourself to see through and to use your angsty energy in healing, productive ways for those individuals that have shared the similar pain as you, to help and encourage them to stay strong and lucid and empowered in the moment. Surrounding yourself with people who are going to help you move away from that and get out of that hamster wheel of back and forth energy with somebody who, or something, or some job, or an addictive pattern that is definitely not in your highest, best good. Durga Kalika under the deck. I haven't had this one before. That's intense. Look at that lightning bolt and that trident, or is it a fleur-de-lis or something here? To me, it appears to be a trident. It's number 11. And that bleeding third eye looks very ominous. Oh, and then we've got a Smashana under the deck there on the Kali with a decapitated head. So somebody is definitely on the war path here, and there has been a significant death to the trust, to the awareness, to somebody's ability to feel alive and beautiful. I'm seeing the knocked out tooth, like somebody got into some type of a physical altercation perhaps. And I definitely need to reiterate, not only for legal, but because I just need to say this. If you are in a situation of abuse, that is karmic, that is toxic, that will not improve abusive situations are karmic because it's strengthening and empowering us to believe in our value and have compassion and forgiveness for ourselves, and to get the hell out of that situation, to protect and provide for ourselves. That is not love. That is not any type of love. So, okay. I'm going to read you this card because that trident is telling me about, we just yesterday had the moon was opposed to Neptune retrograde. So we're coming out of a fair amount of self-deception and really coming to our awareness of a deepening of compassion and how we have used our opportunities for spiritual bypassing or blaming, victim blaming even. Let's see what we have in here. What is this death cycle? She is fierce divine justice. Maybe it is a court case for you. An unyielding resolution in favor of the light. She is every method and all means necessary to ensure success for the soul. She is the unexpected victory arising at the very moment when all seems lost, transforming tragedy into triumph. She is our spiritual sun, our light, and our ever-radiant reminder that from darkest night a new dawn shall always rise. Dare to trust more in your faith than your fear. For every problem that can arise, there are many more divine solutions unfolding even now. So there's a very deep sadness and fear of the darkness that has already happened and the potential that can go wrong. And okay. In the Hindu cosmology through which Kali Ma is known, life is sustained through a continuous balancing and interaction between the light and the dark, of that which promotes life and that which destroys it. In one story of Kali's birth, she erupts in a frenzy of divine wrath, catapulted out of the awakened third eye of the golden warrior goddess Durga, straight onto the battlefield to arrest the rising power of evil forces. So if you have been done wrong in some type of a way, rather than demonizing, getting into out into the battleground in some type of a way, rising against the power of evil forces, pushing back without using weapons, through using the compassion, could very well be being on a suicide awareness hotline, being on a domestic abuse hotline, a child abuse hotline, or something of that nature where you're using the fear and previous wounds to then promote healing going forward. Another intense one. Dhumavati? 22. Okay. Look at that eye. It looks very much like the eye on this cycle of death here. So there's it's like somebody's coming through their death cycle and their empowerment is first coming through their third eye and taking form in their rebirth moment here, where it's like they're coming back from the dead. Like there's this zombie, this bitterness and retribution energy coming through. But instead of becoming toxic yourself, like some kind of anti-hero, potentially working for the light is what I feel the advice is. The ancient war between light and dark takes place in our world daily, and often enough in our own minds and in our hearts. It's a war of choice where our free will decides which qualities are allowed to become stronger in our lives. That's what we just talked about. Do we choose love or hate, trust or doubt, fear or faith? Beautiful. So that was still the previous card. That was 11 and now 22. Two master numbers, double, 11 and 22. Dhumavati, I hope I'm saying that right. Beloved mother who dwells in the smoke, who presides over the most difficult transitions. She who knows that certain endings are unavoidable. They're necessary predecessors to radical reinvention. Her presence brings the message that through disappointment, defeat, or loss, and the negative repercussions of such experiences may cause suffering for a time, they will not limit your future happiness. They are a means for opening as yet unrecognized pathways for fulfillment. They are a means for opening as yet unrecognized pathways for fulfillment. Your trust must be unconditional at this time, and later you shall see that everything has worked out for the absolute best. So it's a little bit of a, I want to say, bait and switch. Weren't we talking about the allure, bait and switch? Like somebody always comes in and tries to gain favor and takes you down into the depths with them, and it's time for you to recognize what brings the cycle of life and what brings the cycle of death, and radiant moon of compassion. So we have compassion card and then the radiant moon of compassion. So I'll just read this last one for you. Kuan Yin sits upon a radiant moon of compassion, pouring forth the spiritual strength needed for you to liberate yourself from lower vibrational energies of fear and judgment into the vibration of freedom, love, and peace where you naturally belong. You are being urged to use this power now to grow spiritually and free yourself from a situation that could draw you down. Perfect. That is exactly what it is. Releasing yourself from something very traumatic and moving yourself completely out of that energy, out of resonance. Practice makes better and better and better. And invest in yourself. Thank you so much for joining us. I do hope that those messages resonated. And if it did, you may want to check out the other two that I've done this day. It's part 1, 2, and 3 of these chakra upgrades for those going through this transition portal right now with the 7/7 portal. So take good care of yourself and check back with any other messages that are inspiring to you by title or otherwise. So that's all we have. So take care of yourself. Bye, guys.